Welcome to my channel, Casual Gardening and Cooking. In today's video I want to help you out if you are a beginner to having a vegetable garden or a beginner to a specific kind of vegetable that you've not grown in your vegetable garden before. Well, today I do have 3 types of vegetables for you. The first one is celery. The next one is celeriac. Okay, or you can call it a celery root. And the last one is leaf celery. Okay, so it's a very similar vegetable to the first one. However, it focuses more on the leaves themselves. Now, if you are wondering, well, what can you use all those 3 vegetables for? What types of recipes or anything like that? Make sure to subscribe to my channel as these grow, I will be using them in my kitchen and I will be sharing with you some really nice recipes that you can utilize these vegetables for. But mainly you can do some soups, chicken soups, some salads, and there's plenty more I will cover in the future. First of all, we need to prepare some containers for our seeds, and I do use these trays, okay? I'm taking this quite seriously, and I bought some of these trays and I had them for about 3 years now. So yeah, they may be a little bit flimsy plastic, but they do the job and they keep over time quite well. And you've got the tray for the water as well, which is important, and I'll get to that in a minute. So a container of some sort. Now, it doesn't have to be a tray like this. If you are making smaller quantities, you can just use packaging after ice cream or after anything you can think of. Just make sure to make some holes for the water to be able to escape from it, okay? As the last thing you want to do is to have too much water in the soil itself, and it will lead to some issues, but we'll talk about that later. Next, we need some seed starting mix, okay? So what is that? Soil, and something that I tend to use is perlite. It's some sort of a stone that holds moisture, holds water. So that will ensure this soil that our seeds will be in will be constantly moist and will give that refreshment, and it won't lose the moisture and water so quick. And that is very important when germinating and later on when we want to create some seedlings. Now, you can actually buy ready mixes of this, okay? However, usually they are a lot more expensive and you're not sure about the proportions, and you can get different types of issues with that. Hence, I do buy the seed soil separately and then my perlite separately as well, and I can mix them to my own preferable proportions. Now, I do not recommend, and I would say you shouldn't actually at all, use soil from your garden or from last year. It needs to be free of parasites, free of diseases, so it's always best to actually buy fresh soil for the sowing purposes. But hey, let's get the seed starting mix sorted. So first of all, well, we need the soil. And what I always do, I look for the larger pieces that's still in them, and I'm going to separate those. I'm going to take them out, as we definitely don't want them in our mix. If you do have larger pieces like that, just make sure to break them down. It will be a lot easier to put the mix later on in our trays. And now it's time for perlite. And just mix it well with the soil. The soil itself should be quite light, okay? And it should allow the moisture and the water to pass through. And that's very important, because otherwise you may get into issues where some diseases, some fungi will grow into the pot themselves. And obviously this is something that we want to avoid. The perlite itself will hold enough moisture for the seeds to actually sprout and later on to create the seedlings. So definitely we don't want to have standing water in the mix or in the trays themselves with the seeds. And more or less that's what we want, okay? The ratio of perlite to the soil is visible like this. Next, I'm going to put in the trays and I'm going to fill them up. Now put a bit of pressure on every cell to make sure we've got enough of the soil, of the mix inside. If you're still missing, just add some, just like that. Now the next thing you want to do is to have some name tags. You don't want to be confused of which plant are you actually growing where. So you can buy these plastic name tags and just write the name down of the specific vegetable you will be growing and just use a pencil or a pen to mark them up. Now in my case, the name tag will be just per row, so I know exactly what type of vegetable I will be having in each row. Now it's also a good idea to put a date when you were sowing them, so you will know exactly if you are still in the good time period for germination. As sometimes, you may not be successful and, the seeds will not germinate. So instead of waiting forever and ever, you will know more or less after a few weeks past the due date if there's something going to happen or not. Now the reason I'm actually starting them at the same time and together is because the germination period is more or less the same, between 10 to 20 or even sometimes 30 days. For celery it does take a while to actually germinate, plus the indoor sowing method is the preferred one. So you don't really put them straight out into the soil. They need to be sown indoors, and that's why I'm doing all three together. So the celeriac will go in these 3 rows. Next I'm going to have the leaf celery and the normal celery at the end in 2 rows. Now the seeds from these vegetables are absolutely tiny, and I'm not going to even try to put 1 seed in each cell. I will put few, and that will give me the opportunity later on when they germinate to actually pick the best plants, the best looking plants, the strongest ones, okay? I'm gonna just drop them out straight out of the package onto the soil. They are so tiny, it's actually, as I said, it's hard to put just 1 or 2. It's just more or less impossible. Unless you've got very tiny hands, then maybe you'll be able to do it. That's definitely not the case with me. And there's still plenty left for the next season. Just make sure to check the date. If, the use by date is few years ahead, definitely just lock it down in place, put it in a cold and dark place, and you'll be absolutely fine to reuse them for next season. Now the leaf celery seeds, they're even smaller. So again, same method. Okay, and the rest will be good for next year. And finally, the normal celery, same method. Now, an important thing when it comes to celery and its varieties is that you don't cover the seeds up with a massive amount of soil. What do? You just gently tap it into the soil. You tap the seeds into the soil, just like so. So they do come in contact with the soil and more or less they're established in it. And that's what I'm going to do for all of the cells. Now make sure your hands and your fingers or whatever you're using is actually dry, so the seeds don't get stuck to your fingers, so you don't mix up the seeds. At this stage, what you want to do is to either cover them slightly, just ever like 1 millimeter of soil, which is hard to do. What I do, I basically use perlite again at the top. What it will do 2 things. First of all, it will cover the seeds just ever so slightly, and perlite is as light as feather. It basically weighs nothing, so it won't cause any harm to the seedlings. And on top of it, it will hold the moisture for the seeds to take an advantage of. And now the next super important thing is to make sure they've got enough moisture, enough water to germinate and grow, okay? So what I do, I actually do use a sprayer like this one, okay? So it works under pressure and it releases a nice soft mist that goes on top of them. Now I use this sprayer until they germinate, and that does two things for me. I'm absolutely certain that I've got enough moisture and I'm not adding too much water or not enough. Later on, when they germinate and when they do get those first two leaves, they don't actually like to have water on them, okay? The plants usually don't like that. So what then I do, I actually put the water in the tray that goes underneath there to allow the soil to soak in the water. Well, I'm going to show you the whole process later on in a separate video. And I can now transfer them onto the tray. Next step, you need to put our seeds somewhere in a warm place, okay? With the celery, the temperature needs to be between 18 to 23 degrees to actually allow them to germinate. Now, for now, that's all what I wanted to cover in this video. However, in the next video, I'm going to show you what to do next when, well, we're actually going to see them growing. What should you do to make sure you're going to have nice and healthy seedlings? As there is quite a few important steps that you need to follow. So make sure to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss that future video, as it is crucial to the quality of our future harvests. If you enjoyed today's video, drop me that like button down below, and hopefully, well, I'm going to see you on my next video. Take care.